Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. Folks, we got a power-packed show for you. First, I want to get your reactions to the death of Queen Elizabeth II. As folks across the country and around the world are mourning, some are mourning the death of the monarch, but at the same time, some are questioning the history. Today, we want to put the Queen's legacy and her work in its proper perspective. So this is going to be one of two-part conversation, and I want to hear your reaction as we kick it off. So we'll have that. Also, can we talk about student loans and how do you plan for success when you have debt? We'll be checking in with certified financial planner to discuss the latest on not just on the policy, but how it affects your wallets. And then later, can we talk a little bit about how the FBI has essentially been spying on one of our icons, Aretha Franklin? I'm going to be checking in with Jen Dice, who's the journalist that had really asked the FBI through the Information Act to release the files. Well, that was back in 2018, and those files have been released, and we'll share with you what the 270-page document had to say. Plus, we got that and a whole lot more, so stay with us. That's all happening on today's edition of The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. Thank you so much for tuning in with us this afternoon. We got a lot to talk about, but most importantly, we want you to continue to show your support for us here at Black Star Network. Make sure you do your due diligence. If you enjoyed the conversation, if you enjoy being a part of the discussion, make sure you go to our website at blackstarnetwork.com, blackstarnetwork.com, and show your support financially, sharing the content, and a whole lot more as we do the great work of bringing you the conversations and talking about the stories that are most important to you. That can be found again at blackstarnetwork.com. Folks, we got a lot to talk about, so let's jump right in. The big conversation, the big story, of course, is the death of Queen Elizabeth II. The Queen passed away at the age of 96 yesterday. And folks now all around the globe are trying to figure out, more like eulogize and put the Queen's history and her work in its proper understanding and context. Now, today we wanted to have this first part of the conversation because, God willing, on Monday we're going to have the second part where we talk a little bit about what the Queen's, the passing of the Queen, how that will affect the Commonwealth countries that the monarch was served as head of state for. So we're going to have that discussion, God willing, on Monday to get more interesting and more history on that. But we at least wanted to talk about what your thoughts are and get your reactions to the news of the death of the Queen. Now, today, King Charles of course, he has risen to the throne at the age of 73, an age that many people have said that he should be retiring. Well, he had waited for so long, and now this moment has finally come, and people are wondering what type of leader will King Charles be for the next chapter of the monarch. Now, there's going to be a number of events. They have what they call Operation London Bridge, which is a full-blown plan on how to make sure that the Queen is eulogized in the best way, in the proper way that they see fit. And so over the weekend, you can expect a large amount of coverage about what's going to be happening in Windsor, out of Windsor, and around the world. But I do want to get your take on it and share with you just one view that I think is important and very, very interesting, considering there's much debate about the history of the Queen and her 70 years in power, the policies that she has enacted, the legacy that she has made. All of those things are going to be taken in consideration as we look at the great work of Queen Elizabeth II. Now, let me share this with you very quickly from the New York Times, where we had one writer who put it out there, and Ken, if we can, this story right here, mourn the Queen, not her empire. Folks, you know, this is fascinating to me. This is fascinating because there's so many times where we have conversations about icons, people who are of great power and influence, and we don't, you know, we get bits and pieces. And more importantly, the context in which we remember them, how we see them in the larger timeline of history, it makes a difference. And I've been seeing debates on social media. I've seen, and I'm saying particularly among Black folks now, Black folks saying, oh my gosh, you have some Black folks saying that she was such a majestic figure. Other Black folks have said that she was a terrorist, that she allowed genocide to happen, and particularly in Africa and in the Caribbean islands. Other folks have said that, you know, she was just a face and she really didn't have the power for a lot of those things. So, and then you got all of the conspiracy theories about her relationships, and all of those things are happening. So we're going to try to cut through all of the chatter and look at some of the key facts here. So I want to share with you, and you could take a look at it. One thing is for certain, folks, and this is something that I've researched Queen Elizabeth II. One thing is for certain: she loved the pomp, the pomp and circumstance. She loves the big entrances. She knew at the age of 25, and that's when she ascended to the throne at the age of 25. Can you imagine that? At 25 years old, you've been given all of this power, all of this wealth. Can you imagine that? And she stood in that space for 70 years through various administrations, whether it's in Washington or around the world, through various global events, from different wars. 70 years. And she had always said at the very beginning, this is in the 50s, when she ascended to the throne, that she was going to essentially die while serving. She was going to stay committed. And for 70 years, she stayed committed amidst the scandals, amidst the upheavals, amidst the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations, personally, professionally, within her family, outside of her family. She stayed the course of being the queen. So I would love to get your take on this. Post your comments on our YouTube page, post your comments on our Facebook page, and we'll certainly share with you, with everyone what you have to say. But let me throw this out here first, folks. And this is the what I thought was pretty interesting. Was this piece from the New York Times writer? Her name is Maya Jasanoff. And Maya Jasanoff, she is a Harvard professor, and she's an author of books that talk about British society, British power, and of course, covering the monarch and the power of Queen Elizabeth II. She wrote a piece, and Keena, let's throw that right back up on the screen for me, please, bro. This piece, Mourn the Queen, Not Her Empire. She said this, Maya Jasanoff, she said, the Queen embodied a profound, sincere commitment to her duties. Her final public act was to appoint her 15th prime minister, and for her unflagging performance of them, she will be rightly mourned. She has been a fixture of stability, and her death in already turbulent times will send ripples of sadness around the world. But we should not romanticize her era, for the Queen was also an image, the face of a nation that during the course of her reign witnessed the dissolution of nearly the entire British Empire into some 50 independent states and significantly reduced global influence. By design as much as by the accident of her long life, her presence as head of state and head of the Commonwealth, an association of Britain and its former colonies, put a stolid traditionalist front over decades of violent upheaval. Wow. As such, the Queen helped obscure a bloody history of decolonization whose proportions and legacies have yet to be adequately acknowledged. Again, Maya Jasanoff, a professor of history at Harvard, is the author of 3 books about the British Empire and its subjects. Wow. Wow. I found that statement to be highly profound. This is what Maya put in today's, in today's New York Times. And I found it to be highly fascinating, highly fascinating. And I'm so happy for the professor to put this out there because, as one who I don't follow the Queen, I had to do my research, but as one who was trying to get a balanced view, it's important that we know exactly who we're dealing with, what the history is. And like I said, this is the first part. So on Monday, we'll do more digging, but it's important that we understand the whole picture, see the big picture. I was always taught that you really can't make a judgment on anyone until their testimony has been done, i.e. their life has been put to a finished point. So now that the Queen has transitioned, we can make a more, I would say, a more or better judgment of who she is, what she stood for, what she allowed, what she didn't allow. All of those questions can be posed right now because her testimony has ended. All right, let me go to you. Let me hear your reactions. And again, folks, post your comments. Big shout out to my online culture crew. Y'all are always bringing some good heat, great insight. So I'm really expecting to see a lot of what you have to say. Make sure that y'all get prepared to share your thoughts on this. All right, let me go to Shalinda, and we'll share with you some more things that King Charles has said. But Shalinda, you kicked this off today. You said, I could care less about the Queen the only Queen that I respect is Queen Latifah. It's weird that ABC, CBS, and NBC going to show King Charles' first speech, but didn't with Biden last week. Ouch. Yeah. Woo. He began, and it's interesting because he began his address by paying tribute, of course, to his mother, the Queen. He described her as, quote, an inspiration and an example to him and to all of his family. And, this is his quote from King Charles. He said, we owe her the most heartfelt debt any family can owe to their mother for her love, affection, guidance, understanding, and example. He says, hers was a life well lived. And he added that she is mourned most deeply in her passing. And he said, wherever you may live in the United Kingdom or in the realms and territories across the world, and whatever may be your background or beliefs, he said, I shall endeavor to serve you with loyalty, respect, and love as I have throughout my life. I don't know, Shalinda, if that changes your view of things, but we will have to see. The first speech is always the interesting one. Yes, President Biden said those things. President Biden did do a primetime speech, but in the interest of news, let me just say this. This takes a little bit more precedent just because it's newsworthy. That's all it is. That's what it comes down to. But I understand your point. Let's hear from Michael. Michael Rondo, sound like a new voice. Welcome, Michael, to the Culture crew, and welcome to the Culture. You said, we'll pray for a new experience for them, coming clean of the past, an opportunity to create a new chapter for people in today's time. Absolutely. I think, Michael, to your point, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. I think this is probably the biggest question. Like, will the monarchy come to a point of what they call reckoning? Will they be honest about their involvement in so many different things that have had a global impact? Will they be honest and be fair in their relationships from everything from the Caribbean islands to any of those 50 independent states? Will they change direction? Will they be cognizant of the history? Will they understand the pain and the hurt that some of their policies have made and have had on the people of these 50 independent states? Will they? Will they? And this is one of the questions, I think, Michael, that we need to always keep into the forefront, but even more so than that. And this is something I want to talk more about on Monday, which is, and I'm thinking about the Caribbean islands here, folks. You got places like Barbados. Barbados decided to break ties with the Queen and the monarch. Back in 2021, they have a Black woman serving as the president of Barbados. They have established their own independent republic. And so now the question that's been posed now is that will other islands in that part of the world, will they follow suit? Should they follow suit? We have to see. And this, of course, will be a huge question, I believe, for King Charles and his administration, for lack of a better word. They are going to have to figure out, like, how do you, quote unquote, rule on a global stage? How do you influence policy? How do you still maintain some level of control, essentially, right, on a global stage in a time where there are so many forces, and there's so much resistance to colonization, so much resistance to the monarchy, so much resistance to this idea that people can't govern themselves. So I think, Michael, that's going to speak volumes, bro. That's going to speak volumes. Appreciate your point, Michael. Thank you. Great point. Karen Connor, you always got something to say, and I'm always welcome to hear from you. You said, my grandparents were British Caribbean immigrants. Everyone immigrated to the USA due to the terrible living conditions. I traveled to my ancestral island of Montserrat and was outraged. Yeah. Again, that goes back to, will King Charles kind of stay in a managerial space, or is he going to be innovative? Now he's 73. You know what I'm saying? We're seeing he might, we don't know how long he plans to stay there. We don't know when his testimony will end or anything, but it's going to be interesting. There's people who are, and I know some of you probably have seen this, that are kind of like, all right, King Charles, yeah. We want to get to William. Because now you want to see a younger, with Prince William next in line, people are expecting to see something different. Prince William as him being a younger, the younger generation, who has been exposed to a lot of different new ideas about control and a lot of new ideas about government. If y'all remember when William and Kate, his wife, when there was an outrage about the fact that the Queen never signed on to this idea of reparations, especially for our people in the Caribbean islands, and to acknowledge the horrific impact of the transatlantic slave trade, and how William and his wife made the trip. They said it wasn't a good trip, but he made the statement that slavery was a horrible institution, was a horrible experience, and that he was trying to do right, come clean, trying to put the monarch in a better position. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, again, looking at those relationships, and we should keep our eyes on it as well. We should keep our eyes on it, because we don't know what's in King Charles' mind. We don't know how he's going to move about. And is he going to work with those leaders in those places, in the islands and in the Caribbean islands? Is he going to bring them together? We don't know. But there's a new consciousness emerging right now. There's definitely a new consciousness emerging. So Karen, great point. Thank you for checking in. Damon, my guy, you said, I'm not celebrating or mourning the Queen's death. I hear that, Damon. I hear that. Melissa, checking in. You said they need to be honest, apologize, and try to move forward, or they won't last. Facts. I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is. We have no choice at this point. Mike V, my guy, you said, my family is from Barbados and was a part of the Windrush generation in the UK and helped rebuild Britain after World War II. They were never given citizenship, and it ended up in the US. Her rule drained the diaspora. Whew. See, And I know some people might say, well, why are we bringing certain things up? They need to be brought up. I mean, first, again, like I said in my opening remarks, folks, once your testament is done, then you have every right to judge, to make a judgment on a person's history. And I think we should, right? You know what I mean? Just because we don't need no more lies in history. Out of any, if it's not just for the sake of truth, and that's the most important element, that's the most important principle, right? In this truth, for the sake of truth, we should be honest with one another. Great point, Mike. And it's you know, I knew many of you would have personal stories because we're all connected. You know what I mean? The transatlantic slave trade has connected us all around the globe. So that is also the great equalizer for all of this. Wayne, you checked in and said she did nothing for Black people. All right, Wayne. I want to bring more voices in. I'm gonna bring more voices in, and we can have a more in-depth conversation about it. But I understand the sentiment. Cordell, thank you, Wayne. Cordell McMillan, you checked in and said apartheid started in 1947 because of the British colonialism. Yeah, there was some pushback. I know she tried to push back on that. I read that when she was she had a that when her and Margaret Thatcher were they had a relationship, and if I'm correct, I read that Margaret Thatcher opposed putting sanctions on South Africa because I think the Queen wanted it, but I can double check on that. So her history around that piece is very interesting. Thank you so much, Cordell. Sophia, you checked in. They always trying to make us say mother. May I? Didn't Fred Mercury make a song called Another One Bites the Dust? Wow. Y'all nonstop today. Also, to Sophia, you said they always trying to make, you did say that. So yeah, I remember that. I remember that song. I remember that song. And Peter Jordan, so you said, who cares about them? We fought a war to leave them. Mm, 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 mm. And Melissa, we wanted to bring up those Commonwealth realms: Antigua, Barbados, Australia, the Bahamas, Belize, Canada, Grenada. Some people pronounce it Grenada, Jamaica, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, Solomon Islands, Tuvalu, and the United Kingdom. Yeah. Yeah, they got all of these places have great rich history that involve British rule. And so it is going to be super important that as we go through this, as we read about this, that one, just know that there are two sides to the story. Then you say there's their side, then the other person's side, then the truth somewhere is in the middle. That you just got to know that. So we're going to do our due diligence here, because I just wanted to get the ball rolling to get your reactions. But we got to ask the questions come Monday. Let's talk about what's going to be the relationship. You know, what should these Commonwealth areas seek independence? You know, what is the true history of the Queen's policies and the impact that it has made on not just Africa and the islands, but all over the globe? You know, how should we regard the Queen at this point? I mean, there's a lot of questions. So I appreciate all the reactions that we've gotten from each one of you, from our online culture crew, and so many more. So thank you. Look, we'll certainly, like I said, God willing, Monday, I'm going to bring in some new voices. Let's bring in some scholars and talking about the impact of this. But trust and believe, all weekend long, you're going to be hearing more about Queen Elizabeth II. She served in the longest serving monarch in history, 70 years of service. And so it's going to be interesting to see how history places her legacy. All right, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about student loans. Let's talk about how do you find financial success in spite of debt. We'll be checking in with certified financial planner to give us some insight on that and a whole lot more. Stay with us. That's coming up in the next 30 of The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We want to shift gears now to talk about financial success. How can we get financial success? How can we really taste success when you are straddled down by debt? Now we wanted to have this conversation. Of course, we have been talking about what the impact, the latest policy of relieving some of the student loan debt that so many Americans, 40 million people in this country are just burdened by student loans. And so now the question becomes, okay, the government wants to help to relieve some of that debt. What do we do? What kind of plan do we put together? So we wanted to do our due diligence here. Take a look here, folks. Student loan forgiveness makes it possible to build wealth for a generation that fell behind. Now, this was a story that was featured in Fortune magazine. And one of the big things that they talk about, take a look, as we look at this big picture, it says that tens of millions of Americans hold over 1.7 trillion, with a T, trillion dollars in student loan debt. As college has become increasingly unaffordable in the U.S., the debt has snowballed into a financial burden that has hindered millennials in particular, and now members of Gen Z from reaching financial goals such as saving for retirement, buying homes, getting married, and having children. Members of Gen Z and baby boomers also hold a significant amount of student loan debt, including balances they took on to help pay for their children to pursue higher education. In all, around 60% of U.S. adults who have had student loans have delayed making important financial decisions because of that debt burden. Now, this is according to Bankrate.com's survey from earlier this year. For Gen Z and millennial borrowers, the share rises to 70%. But knowing that forgiveness is coming can take that weight off and free up potentially hundreds of dollars a month for over 40 million people. Well, we wanted to have a conversation about this. And so we're happy to have certified financial planner Rochelle Smith, who is a speaker and author, and she serves as the president of the Ames Financial Solution. Let me make sure we can get Rochelle in here very quickly. There we go. Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Rochelle, when we talk about this debt and you're talking about, where do we start? The big thing is
trillions. Trillions.
I mean, yeah. Look, I'm not even, the debt, this is crazy. Now, I'm trying to put this in another perspective. The debt that we owe in student loans is almost comparable to the debt the country owes.
Go figure. And on top of that, a large portion of that debt is being attributed to African Americans, lower to middle class.
Rochelle, say that for the people in the chat.
For the people for the people in the back of the chat.
In the back of the chat.
In the back of the chat, a large portion of the $1.6 trillion in debt that about 45 million borrowers owe is on the backs of low to middle class income households, which largely that debt, not all, but a great percentage of that debt is attributed to African Americans.
All right. So I'm glad that we had to break up that myth that we're making some gains, because that's crazy.
Yeah. So here's the thing. One of the easiest ways to get financial assistance to attend college is to get a Pell Grant. In order to get a Pell Grant, there is some income eligibility. Okay. So the greater portion of the payouts that are going towards student loans, obviously, again, comes from Pell Grants. If that is going to lower to middle class homes, then what demographic is that going to represent? We definitely are the holders of millions and trillions of Pell Grant debt.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's all I can say, Michelle. It's damn.
Yeah. Damn.
All right. So when we look at this, and like I said, I referenced this Fortune magazine article that says that it is still possible for us to get from under the burden of debt, student loans and other debt, and still make some type of financial success. My question is it really possible? There was a study, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. There was a study done maybe like a year or two ago where it said that the wealth gap for Black people in this country, in order for us to close the wealth gap to try to catch up to where our white counterparts are, it would take us over 200 years.
Yeah, you can't work your way out of it. Like, we can get the highest paying jobs. We can sit in, and we need to be in those places. We need to be in boardrooms. We need to be in C-suite positions. But just working alone is not going to get us there. $10,000 being relieved in student loan debt is not going to get us there. Now, the $20,000 comes in for those people who also have Pell Grants. So you can get up to $20,000 loan forgiveness if you have Pell Grants and your income is under $125,000. Now, for some people, that's going to be great. I think the number actually is 27 million people will benefit from that. So if we talk about, according to the website, if you go to the government site, it talks about 45 million borrowers, and it's saying 27 million will benefit from that $20,000 debt relief from having the loans and Pell Grants. That's great, because for some people, they may be on their last 25,000, or maybe they owe 10,000, or maybe they owe 15,000. So that's great. That's less money being taken out of our pocket going back to student loans. But
so let me ask you though,
alone will do
right.
it.
So what happens to the other 13 million?
The other 13 million people?
Yeah, you said 27 million.
Yeah.
That 27 million people will be eligible for relief. What happens to the other 13 million since they're
right?
over 40
So
million?
Everybody's not going to get it. Obviously, there's an income limit. So that 125. So if you're in what they call, I think the top 5% is where they're putting it, you're not going to get any relief. Your relief is you won't have to start your repayments again until after December 31st, 2022. So that's the relief that you're getting. The relief from not having to pay those student loans over the last year or so that they have deferred them. So you get some relief there, but you definitely don't get back that forgiveness. So I say this, I'm not mad at people who are getting relief, because there's some benefits that maybe you and I will get that won't benefit other people. And so in this case, if this helps somebody lower their debt, helps them increase their net worth, I think that's great. This is one of the things that Biden ran on. He ran on the $10,000. He didn't run on 50,000. 50,000. Now that's when you start talking about really putting a dent in student loan debt. But it is something. It is a start.
Let me ask you, should we advocate, even now at this point, should we advocate for $50,000, or would that not be fair for those who are just eligible for 10 and 20,000?
Well, I think that you hear a lot of conversation now on different sides of the aisle, both sides actually, about forgiving this debt, because they know that a lot of this is going to help Black people. So they do know that a lot of people that are going to be affected are Black. So there's arguments on both sides. But here's my thing. I'm going to go into the same lane that a lot of other people went in. And that lane was, well, you got millions of dollars from PPP and you don't have to pay it back. Period. Right. So you don't even have to pay back the millions that you may have gotten, or the thousands that you may have gotten back from PPP. So again, it is just one of those benefits that's only going to affect a certain group of people. And I'm okay. Again, I'm not mad that people are going to benefit that. I wish that it was more. There are some of us who paid off our student loan debt and we don't owe anymore. And, it's like, what about me? I'll get my benefit or, something from somewhere else. But back to our point of this closing the wealth gap, I think people will have the opportunity to spend their money in other places, maybe pay down some other debts. But I don't think that it closes the wealth, makes a big dent in closing the wealth gap.
All right. So let me ask you, before we go to our comments from our watchers here, Rochelle, what do we do? Where do we start, right? Because this is all big. This is still, when I watch my online culture crew, when they talking about, financial success, they're like, look, I'm doing what I need to do for me, right? Like I'm paying my bills. I'm staying on top of my credit card debt. I've communicated with the banks about my student loan debt. So where do we start with, finding some level of success, even if you got a massive debt? Nobody wants to win. I'm sure you heard this in your line of work. Nobody gets up every day, sits in traffic, or some of us go to our living rooms, right? And just to pay bills. Like, life should not just be about paying off some damn bills.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a meme out there, out there that says that somewhere.
I can't do it. And I know people, that's all they focus on. And y'all know who they are. Y'all know, like, that's all they talking about, man. I just got to get this money, got to pay these bills. Bruh, the bills will be there until you die.
Yeah, they will. They will. And you know what? That's a great point. It's frustrating to go and work 40, 50 hours a week, bust your ass, and the only person that gets paid is the bill man. Like, that's very frustrating. You don't want to go to work. You don't like your life. You're upset because you went in and you gave 50 hours to either your company or someone else's company, and the only person that gets paid is the bill man or the creditor. You want to reap some of that benefit. So the first thing that we have a problem doing in the Black and brown community is paying ourselves first. That is where you need to start. Like you said, most people are going to get paid. We need to get paid.
All right. Now here's the go. Y'all ready for this? Rochelle, I know you're ready for this, sis.
I'm ready.
Some of us have no boundaries on how much we pay ourselves. We like, no, I love myself so much. I deserve this $3,000 handbag today.
Exactly. That's not the paying yourself that I'm talking about. That's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about paying yourself through your retirement fund for whatever that means to people. And I think I'm going to stop using the word retirement and say you're that next chapter or whatever that is. I might stop using retirement, but I'm talking about how do you pay yourself for whatever you want to do in the future, right? So how do I set myself up so that I don't have to work until 65 until I get Medicare and have to wait for government to say this is when I can get Medicare? How do I travel while I'm younger versus when I turn 65 and I'm, maybe something's wrong with me and I can't get around, Africa or Europe or wherever it is that I want to go? What do I do? What amount, 10 to 15% of your gross income, that's the number, do I set aside for myself for my future goals? And it's not a handbag. It's not a pair of shoes. It's for future goals. And those future goals could be retirement. Those future goals could be buying land and real estate. There is no more land. All dirt is good dirt is what I was told. There's no more land being built. What can you get now? That's how you pay yourself.
All right. Now I need to take some questions, some comments. And I want to get your take on all of these folks that are checking in, folks. We've been talking to certified financial planner Rochelle Smith to give us some insight about dealing with the issue of debt, student loan debt, and how do we find financial success in spite of debt. Let me just share with this. You don't like my music. You checked in. You good to hear from you. You said the average student loan is about $60,000. That should be your down payment on a home. Damn. Is that true?
I according to the Biden website, the average loan now is about $25,000. Now that's not everyone. Of course, there's the Ivy League schools, and even some of the HBCUs and private schools are way higher than that. Some of the community colleges, of course, are going to be in line with the numbers that I've read about. So here's the thing. I think that this person made a great point, because your student loan debt is higher, of course, than the income that you're going to get once you get out of college, right? So let's just say the job you're going to get once you get out of college. So let's just say you rack up, $100,000 or $125,000 of student loan debt, just to use that number. Are people making that as soon as they get out of college? Most people, no. So it's going to take you many, many years to pay that debt off. If you are one of I have clients who are dentists, that's like $400,000 that they are racking up. That $10,000, $20,000 is going to be great for them, but it's not going to get them out of debt, and it's not going to close the wealth gap.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So that leads us to, and you don't like my music. He checked in and he said, thank you for the correction, Rochelle. So he appreciates that. So thank you for for making that correction. Rashida, she checked in and said, does your student loan die with you, or does the family have to keep paying? Now that's satanic.
Yeah, that's satanic. So that is definitely a part of that's the part of estate planning. And again, gosh, we just bring up all the great things that our culture does not do well, and we do not do well with estate planning. Usually, I'm not an attorney. Usually when you die, that debt does not go to your family to pay.
Okay.
There's a way to make that not happen.
Gotcha. But you have to acknowledge that. You have to request that, or is that just a different conversation?
Yeah, that's a different conversation. But here's the thing: what that I would say.
Okay.
This is National Life Insurance Awareness Month, September. Plan for stuff like that. I don't, plan for if you are a single dad or a single mom or married with 2 kids, you gotta kind of plan for that, right?
Got to. You got to. I've taken out life insurance for myself and for my family. Got to. You got to. And I think, and I'm so happy.
Easiest, least expensive way to create a legacy. So think about this.
And you know what, Rochelle? You talking about the culture. It's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
Let me tell you, and this is the heartbreaking part. This heartbreaking that, we have, whether it's members in the family or members in the community, that when they die, and I mean, here's a person that has worked so many years in a certain space, right, for various institutions, and they don't have the life insurance, or they don't have insurance, say if their child dies,
right?
They creating a GoFundMe, and it's like in 2022.
In 2022, according to statistics, about 54% of United States citizens have life insurance. 54%. That is unacceptable. It's unacceptable for us to know that, we have, we're starting behind the 8 ball. Big Mama's house, we have been at Big Mama's house for family reunions and all that stuff forever. It's not good if Big Mama passes away and we can't figure out how to keep that house in our family.
Right.
Or how to split it or sell it or do whatever it is that we want to do to make it make financial sense.
Right.
2022, that's unacceptable.
Totally unacceptable. And that's the part about it. And I'm so happy that you brought that up. Let's go take a couple other folks really quickly. Karen, you checked back in. You said people have to stop with running up debt for material things. Large debts are due to purchases of expensive, unnecessary items. There are less expensive, practical items always available.
I agree. And, I love a great bag. I love a great pair of shoes. I tell people that work with me that when you come work with me, you are in the no judgment zone, because I've made every money mistake that, everyone else has made. It's how you come out of that mistake, right? Like it's how you respond to what you have done. A lot of our debts come from us being ignorant about what our decisions are. So student loans, did we need a student loan? Okay, maybe we did. Did we need to go back and get another degree and create more student loan debt because you didn't get the job that you wanted, or you didn't have, you didn't get the right degree? Making decisions. That's one part of it. The second part of it is we are, of course, a microwave generation, Generation X, Z, millennials. We like it, and we like it now. We don't like to wait. Let's talk about Big Mama again. Big Mama, if the stove went out, she waited and Papa waited until they had money to replace the stove. We don't do that. We go to Home Depot and we get ours today and we pay it in 6 months. And then we miss the 6-month payment period.
Is that our fault that stores and retail places and banks? I mean, it's so funny because you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But it's like we live in a culture where they're like, oh, you can go and do it this way, or you can do it this way, and it will be a lot easier.
Mindset, decision making.
I mean, they exploited the human nature, right? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Like you can go in the store right now, and I bet you will see a snowball or Santa Claus somewhere in one of the if you walk in the store. So it's a mindset. They have gotten us. It is definitely a mindset, but it's our fault if we don't start making better decisions for ourselves, right, for our community, and for our legacies. Then that's our fault. So, once you know better, do better. Maya Angelou said it, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better.
Absolutely. All right, let's get a couple of more folks in before we wrap up the conversation with certified financial planner Rochelle Smith. Devondus, you checked him. Devondus, you said, yes, all those small and big corporations receive PPP loans from the government and do not have to pay it back.
No.
As a certified financial,
I'm a small company. I got a small amount for a small company, whatever I got, but they have to be paid back if you do the right thing. I mean, I'm not going to be one of the ones that they come after. I guess they're coming after some people. It won't be me, but some people supposedly they're going to go after them. Who knows how that's going to go, but they don't have to be paid back if you do what they said do.
Let me ask you this very quickly, Rochelle, because we've been talking a lot about personal debt, but when you're talking about running a business, owning a business, being an entrepreneur, that's a different way of debt management. Is that correct for businesses, for small businesses? Talk to us, given like 30 seconds. Can you break that down for us to understand to tell us why it's important for us to first understand that, and then two, ways that we can kind of move forward on relieving the business debt versus the different way of relieving personal debt?
Yeah. So rule number 1, do not commingle personal and business finances.
Okay.
You do not. Those are two separate things, right? You don't try not to commingle those. Now, of course, if you are running your business and that's all that you have, you got to pay yourself some kind of way to pay your bills and to, pay your mortgage or rent or whatever it is. That is fine. You have to work with a professional who can help you determine what your payment to yourself should be or how you pay your expenses. Do you have a home office? There's all kind of different factors that have to be looked at. But what I say, rule number 1, you don't mix the two. Rule number 2, professional help is out there. I think that paying someone to help you get started and get in line is going to be a better option for your money than making a costly mistake and then having to go get someone to correct it. So just get the help to start out with.
Absolutely.
And number 3, if you are going to start a business, like if you're going to go from a 9 to 5 to start your own business, you don't have to just jump out there on day one. There's nothing wrong with having your 9 to 5 and easing into your side business to get things rolling, to get the ball rolling. And as you see things growing and you get the hang of it, and then you kind of leave that 9 to 5 or that corporate job. There is a way to do it. I understand stepping out on faith and all of that. I did all of that, but I'm just saying there is a strategy or a right way to do it for you and your family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got a few moments left, Rochelle, and I'm very, very thankful that you're able to join us today. And I want to put it out there that as we talk about student loan debt, y'all know about my gripe I have about the cost of education in this country anyway. We can talk about student loan debt and forgiveness all day. But when you look at the cost of a year and some of these higher learning institutions, crazy. And as a civilized society, as a country that is supposed to be one of the most progressive, versus other countries on this globe where education is more readily accessible and available and affordable. And they're producing still great minds in science and technology and medicine. It's sad that capitalism has permeated even into the learning space. But here's what Princeton is doing. They're making tuition for undergrads programs free for most students who come from households with $100,000 or less in annual incomes. And at in beginning of the fall of next year, 2023, roughly a quarter of its student body, about 1,500 students, will have their tuition, room, and board expenses covered, according to the Ivy League institution that they announced yesterday.
That's great. That's great.
There is a tide turning. I'm gonna surf that tide because tuition is too damn high in this country.
Yeah, and that's the part. So we only heard about the highlights of the Biden plan, but it's like a 3-part plan. So the other part is they're trying to fix the student loan forgiveness program. So if you work in an underserved community as like a nurse or a teacher or you're working for a local government, military, there are ways that you can get your student loan debt forgiven right now. There are programs. So part of their goal is to fix that. The other part of the plan is to get accountability from colleges and university on the rising cost. Because before, why we're in so much trouble is when you got a Pell Grant before, it covered like 80% or so of your cost. Now it only covers maybe like a third. So those are the types of things that they are working on getting under control as well. So there is that student loan forgiveness part, but this is an ongoing program or policy out there that they're going to try to fix. And I think that the rising cost of college is it's out of control.
Out of control. Way out of control. Rochelle, we appreciate your time that you spent with us this afternoon to talk about this. What's the best way folks can get in touch with you?
If you just go to my website, Ames Financial Solutions, AMES, financialsolutions.com. All my contact information is there. And also sign up for my emails and you'll get more great tips like we're giving out today.
Absolutely. Rochelle Smith, certified financial planner. She's a speaker. She's an author and president of Ames Financial Solutions. Rochelle, we got to bring you back on, sis. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Have a great one.
You too. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about Aretha Franklin. Yes. Well, the icon has been loved and admired by so many of us for a number of things. But did you know she was also being watched? We're going to be checking in with Jen Dice, who is the founder of Courage News, to talk about her breakthrough journalism and exposing what the FBI was doing in a 270-page document as they were monitoring the Queen of Soul during her years in the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, and all the way up to the present day until her death. Man, oh man, we got so much to share with you on that. So stay tuned for that conversation. Plus, can we talk about the white privilege card? Yeah, I'm going to get into some details about that and so much more. So stay with us. The next hour is going to be phenomenal. You don't want to miss any minute of it. So stay with us. It's The Culture happening right here on the Black Star Network. Don't go anywhere.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. To all of our new watchers that's part of our online culture crew, welcome. Hopefully you've been enjoying the show so far, and we truly appreciate you for tuning in. We wanted to kick off the second hour talking about something I found to be highly fascinating. I'm not surprised, but yet I am still surprised. And this is a topic that I see that has been trending and is catching a lot of momentum. And I'm very, very happy to have this conversation with all of you today. Here's the situation. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, who died back in 2018. We have loved and admired our sister for not just her music, but what she stood for. But did you know that the FBI has been monitoring our Queen of Soul for so many years? This is coming from The Guardian. Check this out, folks. Take a look. The FBI has declassified its file on Aretha Franklin as of the late Queen of Soul, who died in 2018 at age 76. Here's the thing. The 270-page document, which includes reports from over a dozen states, shows the Bureau's extensively tracked the singer's civil rights activism and her friendships with Martin Luther King Jr., Angela Davis, and others. Now, this file that was requested via the Freedom of Information Act by journalist Jen Dies, she posted excerpts in this lengthy Twitter thread and reported by Pitchfork. It also includes close documentation of Franklin's performances for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, of which King served as president. So we're so happy to have Jen joining us to talk about this, because she put it out there. This is years in the making. And Jen, we thank you so much for taking time out your busy schedule to join us for this. I was fascinated by this. Your tweets. I mean, you have redacted documents from the FBI, declassified at this point, that shows that there was an extensive surveillance on the Queen of Soul. Why did they do such a surveillance on her out of all people?
You know, it's, as you said, it's not surprising, yet you still, I think this goes for most people, you still feel an element of shock or surprise, even though it's literally not surprising knowing what and how the alphabet agencies, including the FBI, surveilled anyone having anything to do with the civil rights movement. So the reason I requested this, by the way, I requested these documents from the FBI, again, through FOIA back in 2018. And so, what is it, 2 or 3 days ago, everything's kind of running together now, but they didn't send anything until then. And by the way, Aretha Franklin is just one of many that I've requested files on. These just happened to come in the other day. So, I mean, their MO was, here is a Black prominent figure, and we are going to surveil her and her every move. And seeing it all laid out, again, the documents are about 270 pages. They are completely incomplete, and I'll get to that in a second. But it's really so stomach turning, so disgusting, part of what they do. And we'll get to this too. It is part of what they are still doing. These documents show how the FBI infiltrated Black rights, civil rights movements, Black Panther Party, SCLC. Right. They were infiltrating everywhere. They had sources everywhere. They knew everybody's every move. And what they would do is link any form of standing up for Black rights, for civil rights, as extremism. And so that is what they continuously tried to tack on Aretha Franklin.
So what was the inspiration for you to even request the documents? I mean, were you looking at just Black civil rights leaders and Black artists and Black influential folks during that time period? What made you want to do that research?
Yeah, so a little bit of background on my journalism. I feel like my role as a journalist, and because of the kind of work I do, I am an independent journalist, freelance journalist. I've started 2 different independent companies because of this, so I can report on what I feel needs to be reported on with no one telling me no. I do a lot of journalism around things like the Flint water crisis, around the way the alphabet agencies, FBI, et cetera, treat as part of their program, as part of their very being, treat Black people and people of color in this country and have. And I think it's very important, especially for me as a white woman, to do what I can to help shine a light on the mistreatment from the very start, from the very founding of our country that, as we all know, was founded very nefariously, continued to act very nefariously, continues to this day to do really horrible things. So I think it is my responsibility in a way to do everything I can to help uncover and shine a light on some of these things. And so as part of filing these FOIA requests, again, which is one of many, I was glad to finally receive some documents, even though this is by far not all of them. And I've since filed additional requests.
Wow. And I would agree with you. I think that we need to know the true history. But like I said, it's not surprising. But I want you to share with us a little bit about some of the highlights or the things that you think that we need to know about these documents. 270 pages. Yeah. What were some of the things that stuck out the most for you?
For sure. And I want to preface this by saying there is a fuller story coming out in a major national outlet. My friend, journalist, amazing activist Afeni has just agreed, signed on to do that with me with a co-authorship. So there's a lot more coming out, but here are some highlights that I find just particularly disturbing. So Aretha Franklin's literal every move was documented. It was like they were the FBI was trying to throw spaghetti against the wall, seeing what would stick, seeing if they could anything at all to stick. For one example, Aretha Franklin was promised a certain fee before a concert. That fee was not given, so she declined to go on stage. Entirely reasonable. There was some kerfuffle in the audience of the concert, nothing to do with Aretha Franklin, not her fault. But the FBI decided to pop that in to a document labeling it as racial unrest or similar. And it's, it was listed as part of a few different, types of incidents like this. Not, Aretha Franklin was one, but again, other prominent Black figures, Black celebrities, civil rights leaders were lumped in the same document. And so there was a constant effort to tie her in with what they deemed as extremism. Anything to do with the Black Panther Party. And in addition, they had their sights set on Angela Davis, as everybody watching knows, hopefully knows. All of I know a lot of my white colleagues like are not aware of this history, and we all have a responsibility to know it. But Aretha Franklin was sympathetic and gave her money, gave her time, gave her platform to stand up for what's right, to stand up for injustice. And so her relation to Angela Davis and others was looked at over and over and over again. The fact that she had sent money. They in fact had an FBI in one of the other files, and the one you just popped up on the screen, they went as far as to document her Atlantic Records contract and contacts related to that contract. Now, why would they do that? Why would they pop these in this files? I've had some comments on that screenshot in particular of the documents saying like, oh, big deal. They put her details of her contract down. How nefarious. And it's like, no, dude, you don't get it. Little commenters. This is part of a much, much bigger picture. There was ill intent behind this. There was threatening intent behind this. And we only know it now because finally, as of some of these documents have only just been declassified like very recently and popped in these files. We only know it now. And another thing is they would set up little sting operations thinking the FBI is so smart. They saw a number associated with the Black Panther Party calling a number that they did a little sting operation with a false phone call to peg on Aretha Franklin, saying, okay, the Black Panther Party called Aretha Franklin. What's going on here? And so there's always this stuff. They're monitoring her every move. Now, on the other side of this, Aretha Franklin, as a powerful, extraordinarily talented Black woman, was targeted by the public. She was threatened constantly. Her family was threatened constantly. As we know, her father was shot. The FBI would document these things, but there's one case in particular that really stands out from these files in that her life was threatened. The lives or safety of her family was threatened. And, you know, this was a handwritten, they put these in the file, the scan of this handwritten threatening letter that it seemingly they could easily trace back to who sent it. But the FBI office declined to fingerprint it, stating that, oh, well, it's been handled, you know, Aretha Franklin's brother said that this has been handled by so many people, therefore we're not going to fingerprint it. But there are other, you know, so-called reasons that remain redacted as to why they declined to further investigate, as well as the SDNY declining to prosecute in this case. And so there seems to be a pattern of both targeting and surveilling Aretha Franklin, plus, in my opinion, and this is something I'm definitely digging into more, not protecting her as she should have been and deserved to be protected.
So one's word has, you know, because when I looked this up, Jen, your name popped up in a couple of stories, but it is this declassification is now being talked about across all of the major media outlets, right?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, what's the end goal? What is going to be the impact of this new information? And I think for many of us in the Black community, especially those of us who do social justice work, even to this day, right? We know that the FBI, the CIA, as you say, them alphabet boys, we know how far they will go.
Yes.
We know some of us may have had that experience firsthand, talking to agents and being in spaces with agents. But we know about this. My hope is, I guess that's the big question, is like, you know, what do you want to see as being the impact of this? Do you think this is going to shift the perceptions that people have? Is it going to empower people, educate people? What would you like to see happen?
So my goal in this is to shine a light, but I don't and I won't report on this simply as something that has happened in the past. I think it's easy for people to say, especially people who are not familiar with the COINTELPRO programs and things of that nature. I don't want people to look at this story and say, oh, that was so terrible. Look at what used to happen, because it's still ongoing. They call it different things, but it's ongoing. COINTELPRO was so horrific in what it did. It's been declared illegal. We only still know a portion of what they were doing back then to target Black people and people of color.
Do you think Aretha knew?
That's a thing that I'm very curious about. I have reached out to her estate, and as part of the fuller story, I will definitely try to get a grasp on that. I have to think she probably had to know, because there were leaks all the time from within organizations, civil rights movement organizations, people surrounding her. She had, and with what happened to so many prominent leaders then, I think she had to know, and she had to know and feel a certain way about seemingly not being protected in the way that she should have in the face of threats. And so I also want people to know, kind of going back to the previous point, there's a new program as of 2018. They've declared that it's stopped. Again, they keep just changing the name and saying it's stopped. That's literally doing these same things, called Iron Fist. Ken Klippenstein, formerly of TYT Investigates, had gotten some leaked FBI documents showing that this is continuing. They keep changing the name, and I want to make sure I get the new names correct. So it was called, in 2018, they had these extremist documents, like of extremist organizations that they were looking into, the FBI. And so they labeled, along with labeling the insane MAGA freaks and white nationalist freaks, along with labeling those guys and popping those into documents talking about threats to our country, threats to other people, they put in, without evidence, without examples, Black identity extremists as a group to look out for.
Black identity extremists.
Yes. And so there was pushback. And this was, it seems to kind of be sparked from some of the Ferguson stuff, is particularly why the FBI seems to have been latching onto this. But then they got in a little bit of trouble. I say a little bit only because people didn't really know that this was going on. So in 2020, they changed it. They changed their monitoring to racially motivated violent extremists, but it uses much of the same language, and so they're still doing this. And so it's a particular point to look at this history, what happened with Aretha Franklin and so many others, and to say they were infiltrating back then. There were people within those movements that were FBI plants, FBI sources. It was not safe. People were not kept safe. Black people were labeled as violent simply for trying to live their lives. And this is still continuing today. They can change the name as much as they want. They can say, oh, COINTELPRO, that was so long ago. No, they're still doing it.
Well, it's interesting. Well, a couple of things. One is that I read, and this was probably about a year ago, where they had there was a report showing that the FBI had went as far as to infiltrate Black Lives Matter chapters, right? And I'm sure you're familiar with that. Yeah. And then the other thing is that, and we want to, and I plan to have an FBI expert on to talk about this issue, which is the FBI is currently monitoring Americans through social media.
Yeah.
And looking at the activities because of the rise of white supremacist terrorism, as well as domestic terrorism, and the rise of the sentiment of hatred against the United States government.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about this level of surveillance, this is this is certainly like to your point. This is not new. I mean, you can change it. You could change the name. The reality is, it is what it is. You are surveilling Americans, high profile or not, citizens that are part of various groups, that are watching, and I think that speaks volumes. I mean, when you think about, and if anybody's familiar with the time of the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, most of your prominent Black voices were probably under surveillance. Everybody probably had a file. You know what I'm saying? And everybody probably had a file. So to me, this just goes to show that as much as we often talk about, or we often have to tell people, oh man, America is moving forward, you get news like this, and it's just a reminder that nothing has changed. That's the hard part about, that's the hard pill I think we all have to swallow.
Well, it absolutely is. It is a hard pill to swallow. And I think part of what has to be frustrating, what is frustrating, is that so many people are just completely unaware that this goes on. I can't report it as fact. We might find out in 50 years, but some of the deaths, the murders that have occurred recently, due to protests and Black Lives Matter movement and things like that, people have shown up dead. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Again, I can't report any facts surrounding that. And it takes a hell of a long time to get anything declassified, as we've seen. But I think it's so important for everyone to be aware. And actually, I didn't know that this thread was going to take off. I report all the time on things that don't take off. It's been a hell of a time trying to get mainstream media to pay attention to things like the Flint water crisis. My friends, my sources are dying, getting sick, getting cancer to this day, this majority Black poor city, and getting mainstream media to pay any attention to that at all has been impossible. So I have to say, I am glad that this thread took off. I am glad that I was reached out to by some prominent national outlets, and that it's going to be published in one in particular.
Yeah.
But this goes to show that it's only because, and this is, it's a good thing, but it's only because Aretha Franklin is such a beloved, known name that they're interested in it. They don't report on, the everyday person. So my goal is using this bit of surge in national attention to highlight some of the lesser known issues, to highlight things that are not talked about, like COINTELPRO, this newer Iron Fist program, the fact that they're lumping people fighting for their rights in with, in my opinion, those who are not looked at enough, things like the Oath Keepers, all of these white militias that are rising up. I don't feel like they get enough scrutiny by these nefarious alphabet agencies. So anyway, my hope is that this brings more awareness, and that I can kind of ride this wave a bit to point to, like, by the way, everybody who is unaware of this, look at this, this, and this is still going on. And here's why, even though this doesn't affect you, speaking to the uninformed audience, like, here's why you have to care. You don't have a choice. You have to care about this if you have any sort of heart at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me get a couple of comments from our audience, our watchers here very quickly before we wrap up the discussion. And again, folks, we've been talking to Jen Dice, who serves as the founder of CarriageNews.com. Jen has been pivotal in getting the files declassified from the FBI, a request she put in through the Freedom of Information Act back in 2018. 4 years later, she finally was able to get the files declassified and released to show the FBI's monitoring of our Queen of Soul, Sister Mother Aretha Franklin. All right, very quickly, let me just go to some of our comments because folks have been checking in, Jen. Conscious Thought, you checked in. You said the government is always watching. Yes, 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 Lord. and always watching. That's why we got to be careful about what we say and what we share on social media. And if you share some stuff that you know is going to be controversial, or if you're in some things, be prepared to stand strong and defend it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's all I'm gonna say, Jen. Otherwise, you don't like my music. You checked in and said Harry Belafonte would have been on that list too. Oh, I know his file is thick.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
He's still living.
Yeah.
He's still around. Mr. B is still around. His file is thick. It's thick.
Yeah. And just in case people aren't aware, a lot of these figures that we've mentioned, you can go to the FBI vault, and their files, some of their files, I'll say, are there. Like Aretha Franklin's is now there in the FBI vault. You can also request fairly easily. Doesn't mean they'll get it to you in any sort of quick time frame, but you can also easily via the FBI's website FOIA things too. Just
Absolutely.
like this.
That's a great point. Second childhood. You said they monitored Martin because of his work was a threat. Maybe Aretha was doing big things behind closed doors, knowing the spotlight brings problems, yet FBI still caught wind. Hypotheticals. It could be. But you know what? All you have to do, and this is something that we even do to this day very quickly, is that Aretha had the platform, she had the influence, and she had the resources, right? Money or any other resources, right? To help take a cause to the next level. And this is a strategy that I see us employing even to this day, that we say, if you work in social justice, you come across an entertainer or athlete or someone of high prominence, and you say, okay, you don't have to be out front. We could be out front, but your money can support us. You know what I mean? You put something on your social media, help us use your platform to bring an event. And I mean, so it's not unusual to see the relationship between activism and entertainment. That relationship has always happened. That is, especially among Black entertainers and Black activists, always happened, because we're always trying to figure out the best way to get the message out, to make people aware and all of those things. So that's always happening. But to your point, second childhood, you're right. Al, thank you so much, second childhood. Al Hamilton, you checked in. You said, as we can see, nothing has changed. They've always tried to find something criminal or treasonous within a politically powered movement. J. Edgar Hoover, who was Black, attempted to destroy any politically. Absolutely. Hotep Pan Africa, you checked in and said, Miss Franklin was one of many African-American artists and leaders involved in uplifting our people through music and other means who were targeted by the FBI. These efforts persist today. You're right. Absolutely right. They don't change. I wouldn't be surprised if everybody, even Jay-Z, a major figure, he probably has an FBI file because of his ability to move through certain spaces. You can go down the list, Black artists. And here's the thing, Jen, and I think that this is something to your point. If you have a file for doing what's right, so be it. Mm-hmm. We can't be afraid. We cannot be afraid. If you're doing what you believe to be the right thing to do, as Aretha did, Martin did, Dr. King did, and so many other great ones, right? Whether you're Black or white, that's just to let you know that you're doing the right thing. That's the consequence. That's just everybody can't walk that path. And I get it and I understand it. But those who can, who says that this is something that they want to do, like even in your journalism, Jay, as a journalist, and you're digging deep to uncover these injustices and to shed light on these things, there's a great consequence to you. And there's a safety issue there. I mean, you come in on the show and you opening the doorway because somebody is going to oppose you. So,
Absolutely.
but it's the right thing to do. We can't, the FBI can't hold these secrets anymore. Very quickly, as we wrap up, Jen, how can people stay in tune with the work that you're doing? I know you said, and I signed up for Carriage News as well, carriagenews.com, folks. You can sign up to be a part of getting information, all the latest information. But I know you said a bigger like a written story, a more bigger expose is going to be coming out. So how can people stay in tune with that?
Yeah, absolutely. My Twitter is at Jen Elizabeth J, Jen with two N's. But yeah, Courage News. I have a Substack, couragenews.substack.com, and I greatly believe that news and information must be free. I hate paywalls. I only pop things behind a paywall if it's like a bonus or extra. So anyone can freely go there and keep up with my news on Flint, on Amazon labor movements, on Starbucks labor movements, all of the movements happening around the world. Speaking of people that I worry about because they're such strong, important figures, like Chris Smalls, interviewed him, things like that. And so that's my focus. That's where you can find me. As far as the wider story, it's coming hopefully within the next week. They don't want me to say which outlet yet, but it's a big one that you guys all know. I hate like hinting at things. I wish I could just say it, not my choice. But anyway, Afeni is going to be a co-bylining that story. If you guys are not familiar with her, at Redis RE on Twitter. Afeni's amazing. And so there's a lot more to come. This is not the end of the road. I've requested additional files. The FBI is having me jump through hoops. Like, oh, if you also want this file in this search, it's like, yeah, I literally asked for that already, but okay, I'll ask again. So there's more coming. And I will stay on all of this. I will stay on Flint. I will stay on everything that's happening right now and everything that I feel matters and goes kind of uncovered in this country in particular.
Fantastic. Jen Dias, who serves as a journalist and founder of CourageNews.com. Jen, we thank you so much. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for being courageous enough to ask for these files to be declassified and released. So, we'll certainly keep our eyes posted. And again, we look forward to getting more news and information, not just about this situation, but about other things that we need to stay on top of. So thank you, Jen, for your time today. I truly appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you all for watching. And this is wonderful. I'm also taking notes on all of Rochelle's advice from right before I got on, financial tips. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen, for your time. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk to Tiffany Gill in a moment to talk about the work that she's doing with Black Girls Unscripted. And she's dealing with the issues of mental health and making sure that Black girls don't go down the path of darkness to even take themselves out through suicide. So we'll have that conversation about that and so much more. Stay with us. It's a lot coming at you in the final few minutes of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Woo!
right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. For our final conversation, we wanted to have a discussion with a sister that's doing fantastic work, and she's looking to uproot the stigma around mental wealth and mental health and wellness, and to help Black girls to always find a place of light when they're feeling like they're in a space of darkness, so they can prevent themselves from doing any type of self-harm or harm to anyone else. So we're talking to a woman by the name of Tiffany Gill, who serves as the founder and chief storyteller and chief visionary at Black Girls Unscripted, which is a nonprofit organization rooted in Baltimore, Maryland, the hometown Baltimore, Maryland. And she's talking about doing this work among Black girls. So Tiffany, we appreciate you for checking in and being a part of the conversation. Let's welcome her into the discussion today. But one of the things that we wanted to speak on as we look at this situation, as we wait for Tiffany to hop on here, one of the things is that we're saying that there is a growing number of girls that are that have been confronted with the issue of how to deal with things in life. And this is a big conversation, folks. Very, very big conversation. I'm looking over here at my notes, and I don't know about any one of you, but I hear about so many people who have these stories, especially among the young, the next generation. And it saddens me that you're talking about little girls, little Black boys who are deciding on taking out themselves or doing some form of self-harm at such a young age. Look, we're going to talk about this. So give us a moment. We're going to take another quick pause. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Tiffany Gill. So stay with us. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back. All right, we wanted to have a conversation about Black girls and having a conversation about mental health and wellness of Black girls, especially in a time like this. So I'm happy to bring onto the airwaves of the Black Star Network, Tiffany Gill, Miss Tiffany Gill, who serves as the chief storyteller and visionary at Black Girls Unscripted. She's also the founder of the nonprofit organization, as it's doing its work of teaching and empowering Black girls to love themselves, to take care of themselves, and if they find themselves in a space of darkness, how to find the light. Tiffany, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon, sis. It's good to have you. How are you feeling today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. When we look at this issue of mental health and wellness, and I feel like, it's trendy. it's become such a trend right now for folks to be like, it's not good for my mental health, or something is toxic, or, it feels trendy. And like, and culturally, I don't know if we should quote unquote push back on that, because I would like for people to talk more about mental health and wellness. But how do we make sure that it doesn't become into a space as just a trend, and not consider that there are really human beings, there are children who are struggling, especially Black children, Black girls in particular, who are struggling with this. This is not just like when we see Naomi Osaka, she says, I got to think about my mental health. When we hear Simone Biles, I got to think about my mental health. And not to say that they don't, but I just don't want to give people the wrong impression, like it's just something like, oh yeah, if I don't agree with it, it's bad for my mental health. Like that, how do we make sure that it stays in a space where it's still taken very seriously?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think the best way we can make sure that happens is to take it to the community, where it's always been, right? So there have always been conversations about mental health and mental wellness and stress and anxiety, and how we as a community, and in particular, as it relates to my work, Black women manage that. It's always happened in the community. It's been in the churches, it's been in the hair salons, it's been on the porches, at the kitchen tables. And so I think today, that's where the most prominent and important discussions need to continue taking place. And I think it needs to happen intergenerationally, right? So our girls need to see and know that their mother and grandmother and aunts went through something similar, and hear the details about how they overcame those issues and how they dealt with those issues during that time. I think social media is great. That's another great meeting point. But again, I think bringing it home to the community, bringing those discussions within your family members, those that you're close to, your peers, all of those are important ways to keep the discussions going and keep them honest, right? Keep them honest.
Yeah. And I think that, when you say bring it to the community, I think that's important. Here's my take on when we have very sensitive conversations, and this is something that I try to keep in mind even on this platform, that you got to have somebody there who knows what the hell they're talking about, right? Right? Somebody that's knowledgeable, but not even just knowledgeable. They have to have a certain spirit about them that is going to bring peace in these very, very like disturbing moments, right? That's not going to be judgmental, that understands the complexity and can say, you know what, I've been there. If they haven't been there, my heart goes out to you, and they can empathize, because it's so big. You know what I mean, Tiffany? It's so big, and it's such a heavy burden to carry that, you have that. I feel like even having these conversations in the communities can go off the rails.
Yeah. Well, you have to have a start and end, right? You have to have a mission and a purpose, right?
Sure.
And it is true. So when if you're in a group setting, or if you're in a panel, it's always good to have folks, your therapist there, your folks who have the spiritual background. Balance is important. A balanced discussions with key people who offer advice and suggestions that people can digest and act on right away. All of that is important. But what I mean more specifically about community, and really it was the reason why I started Black Girls Unscripted in 2013, my mentee at the time shared with me that she'd attempted to commit suicide. And so I was blown away. This 13-year-old, bright, vibrant young woman shared something very profound with me. And we talked about a host of things. But one of the most profound things she said to me during that discussion was that there's nothing good about growing up to be a Black woman anyway. And so, my ride from DC to Baltimore was filled with a ton of emotions. But what I knew mostly was that it was critical that we put girls front and center with powerful, positive Black women who have had some of the same experiences, who can share wisdom, who can explain to these girls that there are more than one way. There's multiple ways to be a Black woman and live this life as a Black woman, and that Black womanhood is sacred. And so again, it goes back to community. It goes back to centering our girls and bringing them into a circle, and showing them a different way. And I will also add that in that exchange, it's reciprocal, right? We learn so much from our young women. I love to hear, I'm on social media, and I love to read and see and hear these girls talking about things that they figured out at 20 that it took me till the age of 35 to get, right? So it's that door swings both ways. But I think that's the beauty, once again, the beauty of community and the importance of having intergenerational conversations. There's nothing like looking around a room and seeing a woman who gets you, who understands you, been there, done that.
I can say the same thing for Black men. For Black men, you know what I mean? Like Black men, like Black women, we are not all made the same. And so when you're in a space where someone understands that, when somebody respects that you're different. Like, just because I grew up in a neighborhood, a certain neighborhood, doesn't mean that, I like basketball and listen to hardcore hip hop music. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not the same. Right. You know what I'm saying? I might be a skateboarder and into, something else. You know, I mean, there's a lot of power into that point. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm also wondering, as I'm listening to you, Tiffany, the mantra that we culturally have placed upon ourselves and embraced of ourselves. Like, for example, when we say Black girl magic, Black women are strong. Has it helped, or does it hinder Black girls and Black women from being vulnerable, being authentically themselves? Now they feel like they got to live up to a standard. Does that add to, or does that take away from who you are as a Black woman?
So I think it's a double-edged sword, right? It really is a double-edged sword, and it's interesting you would bring that. I was just on a call last week, and I got in sort of a back and forth with the word resilient, because we toss that word around, and specifically when we're talking about children and minorities and people of color, and it gives, in my view, a false sense of truth. Right. And so Black women are magic, but we're not magical all the time. Right. Black women are strong, but we don't have to show up strong all the time. And so there are times when those phrases are extraordinarily empowering, but then there are also times when they work to our disadvantage. And so we have to really do the introspective work. Right. And what that means is being able to say, today, I'm not feeling so magical, right? Yeah. And then moving forward with whatever that looks like. Or today, I'm feeling exceptionally strong and moving in that. But the key is understanding that we are under no obligation to show up anyway, other than how we are in that particular moment. And to be true and to be honest, and always with the goal of getting better and feeling better, right? But if today you're feeling exceptionally vulnerable, that's okay. That's okay. And we have to be okay with that. Some of the discussions that we've had, and again, I talked about how the relationship goes back both ways. I remember vividly an elder during one of our cupcakes and conversations, which is what we call our get-togethers, saying, I never knew until this 14-year-old girl told me and showed me how important it is for me to let my guard down and be vulnerable, right? Mm-hmm. When you don't have the opportunity, or when you don't feel you have the opportunity. When you have a great deal of responsibilities, when you're obligated to everyone, you have to show up a certain way for everyone, you sort of get in that routine. And that's exactly what happened to this 82-year-old woman who heard a 14-year-old girl talk about vulnerability, and it changed her.
Absolutely. I'm sure it can. I'm sure it has. So let's talk a little bit about the more of the work that you're doing with Black Girls Unscripted, in helping Black girls and essentially helping women to manage various stressors and to manage all of the ups and downs of life. What are some of the things that you advocate on how Black girls can find some joy when things don't seem to be joyful?
Yeah. So one of the programs that we offer for our young women, it's called Griot Girls, and we take stories of women in history, or women in literature, and we teach these girls about their stories. They learn their journey, they learn their challenges, and through that, they develop their own blueprint for success. So we're introducing girls to historical figures. And they're learning about their lives, and they're learning about the stories and the examples from their lives and ways that they can apply that to help them reach their own goals. And this is especially critical now when we are seeing school systems ban books and sort of whitewash history. We have to take back our own control and make sure that our girls remain clear on the legacy, the shoulders that they stand on, the great women that came before them. So they take that, they use their stories, they journal about it, and they create a blueprint for success. And that looks like getting a job after high school, going into college, determining careers, and each of those girls are paired with a mentor. So that's what we do on the programming side of the house. But really, the community itself is rooted in the power of storytelling, right? Storytelling, personal narratives, our personal stories, our personal experiences of success, of joy, of failure, of fear, of journey, right? Because we are constantly, not every story, you haven't always arrived, right? Most of our stories are one of journey, one of becoming, one of learning. And that's really the powerful part of the most powerful part, I think, of our organization. We have women who, as I said earlier, can see themselves in the stories that other women are telling. And it's empowering. It makes them go for that job. It makes them have that tough conversation with a loved one that they weren't able to talk about in the past. It makes them go see a therapist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is what happens when you get together and you talk about what's possible, and how you got there.
That is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And I love the fact that you guys are using true stories, because that connects more with people than data and statistics and all of those things. Like, we know that stuff, but a good story, and I think when you start to humanize some of these, especially mental health and wellness, when you start to humanize what this condition or what things can possibly be, I mean, it takes the cause up to a whole new level. I heard a story, and I think we talked about it on this show, or Brother Roland talked about a 10-year-old girl took her own life because she felt like she was being bullied. No one had known about her, and it broke my heart, Tiffany. I'm like, 10 years old. How do you get to that place at 10 where you say, well, nobody wants me around, I'm not worth it. If I die, nobody will miss me. Like, how do you get to that place? And then I started to look at the culture, look at how we are in our own community.
Yeah.
And you know what? I have to ask the question, do you feel like Black people, do we really care about our children? You know what I mean? And I'm saying that not as an individual, right? I have a son and a daughter. I love them. I'm saying as a community, because the things that we expose them to, the circumstances that we find our children, and especially our girls and little girls, living in, the violations that we hear about of little boys and girls. I'm like, damn, do we even love our children?
Yeah. You know, so the answer is yes. I believe we do love our children.
Okay.
I believe there are more of us who are working hard, who are deeply invested in our children's success, right? However, I do think that we can spend more time paying attention to what's happening in our own home and in our own community. We spend a lot of time talking about what folks do to us. And we spend less time focusing on the things that we can control, the policies that we can push forth. Even in our own community, I remember growing up in my neighborhood, there were just things that you couldn't do without the neighbors witnessing it. Communities look different now, which means we have to take a much different approach to looking out for our own children and each other's. So I don't want to say that we don't care about our children. I do think that there are so many things that we have to get right within our communities. We have to address education. We have to address poverty. We have to address crime. We have to address mental health, right? There's so many things that are sort of coming at us at one time that it does look like we don't care. And there's always room for us to do better. But I'm careful to be, overly critical because, again, I think there are more of us. I know community organizations. I know individuals who are in the, on the ground constantly, working to support families. I think there are more of us who are trying, but we've got to do a much better job of bringing the whole community together and working collectively because we all benefit when we do.
Absolutely. Let me take a couple of comments, Tiffany, as we have this conversation. Folks, we've been chatting with Tiffany Gill, who serves as the chief storyteller, a visionary, and is the founder for Black Girls Unscripted, which is a nonprofit organization that is teaching and empowering little girls to see themselves in the best way, to take care of themselves through mental health and wellness efforts. LJ007, you said we've always had to live up to standards. The girls today are being indoctrinated and desocialized systematically to be whitewashed. I'm just saying. Do you agree with LJ on that one, Tiffany?
So I see the indoctrination, and I see that largely through social media, right, which is a very powerful medium.
Very powerful.
And the whitewashing, I would agree with that. And again, that means that we have to become more intentional about addressing that. That means that we have to become more intentional in our own homes about pushing back against the reframing or whitewashing of our stories and the truth, because it's always happened.
I agree. I totally agree. It's like you got to reprogram.
Mm-hmm.
You got to reprogram, and because those are the things that will start to attack us at the foundation of how we see ourselves, and so I wholeheartedly agree. You don't like my music. You checked in and said, look, keep your kids away from screens until they are teenagers. It affects brain development. What's your take on that as one who's working in the mental health space?
Well, that is a fact. It does impact brain development. I remember reading not too long ago some of our wealthiest, 1% billionaires don't even allow their children to have access to television or technology, as it were, because they know the impact. So I agree with that. But how does that work in real time? So instead of restricting and saying don't allow, because what happens sometimes when you don't allow it in the home, as soon as the child leaves your house, they're going to have access to that, right? They're in school and around their peers, so it's inevitable. I think a more productive approach would be to have a conversation around, because everything is about framing and perspective, right? And so if you have a conversation with your child about the importance of whatever that topic is that's important in your home, or part of that discussion, then you can point them to some very real examples that support your position, that support your view. And so teach children how to use media responsibly, and always keep the lines of communication open, and also encourage your children themselves to come up with their own stories, to create their own, uh, uh, you know, like I would say, ideas around what they're being presented with, and make that a part of your everyday discussion. Because the idea that we can hide them from technology, or hide them, or keep them away from things that might be dangerous to them, it's just not realistic.
Absolutely. Carmen, you checked in. Carmen Collins, you said a lot are falling through the cracks. And I'm assuming, Carmen, you're talking about just a lot of girls, a lot of boys, but a lot of our children are falling through the cracks when we're talking about health and mental health and wellness. Where do we start with kind of closing the gap of that to ensure that that doesn't continue to happen? Where do we start with having conversations in the household, in the schools, and in the communities, so and all of us being on the same page? I know it's a big question, Tiffany, but just when people hear this, they're going to be like, everybody knows, yep, we got this issue, but the issue can be so big sometimes that we don't know where to start.
I think in the home, it starts with the parents, right? It starts with the mother and the father, and making very clear choices and being very intentional about getting your own mental health under control. And I don't necessarily mean a diagnosis. We as Black folks, period, we are living under racial stress. We've added pandemic stress to that. We've got economic stress. We've got political stress, on top of the things that we're dealing with in our everyday lives. So I think if we're talking about a home, and with the parent being the figure that our children look to for as an example and for guidance, they have to set the tone. So mom and dad need to work on their own mental health. And what I've discovered is most of that comes from a place of deserving, right? So starting with believing that you deserve to be healthy mentally, that you deserve to have joy, that you deserve to live a full and fruitful life. Parents start there. We also have to take stock of our resources in our community, and tap them regularly. And where we see the gaps, push to fill those gaps, whether that means you get the church involved, whether you get your local, your Congress, or your local senators, whoever your political figures are in your community, you get those people involved. Much of what has happened, though, has happened on ground level, grassroots level, with individuals just like you and me deciding this is what we're going to do, pulling together, and again, working together for the benefit of community.
Absolutely. We got a final question for you, Tiffany. This comes from Donna K. Donna said, is mental wellness doing what you want or respect yourself and others, understanding boundaries? Mental health seems muddled in some ways right now. I'm glad that you brought that up, Donna. Tiffany, talk to us about reimagining. First, like when we say mental wellness, what do we actually mean? Does that mean just like, all right, after a long day, sitting down in front of the TV, or is it taking a walk in the park or on the beach? Like, what are we saying? What does the reimagined mental wellness look like?
Yeah. So again, it goes back to starting with, I deserve this moment. I deserve pause. I deserve this break. And it is really stopping and taking stock of what is, right? What's happening? What are those things that I can control? What are those things that I cannot control? and what can I do in this moment? So mental wellness is really, it's a very individual thing, right? So someone may enjoy reading. That may be a source of great comfort for them. Someone else may enjoy something more active. It really is determining in a specific moment when you're facing a particular challenge or when you're just tired, right? When you do rest is mental wellness. Coloring books, mental
Come
wellness.
on.
It goes
Hey, Tiffany.
to, yes.
You ain't saying nothing but a word when you said that rest, sis. I'm telling you.
I'm a huge rest advocate, right?
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
You know, one of the people I push back on, and I know if we might got some of our watchers that feel this way.
Okay.
But I'm gonna step on y'all toes today. Stop downplaying getting some sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or taking a rest.
Yeah.
Everybody always want to be so damn busy. Right. And I had to learn this after my years of activism, being in the streets, being on the scene, and the blah, blah, blah. Then I'm like, damn, I'm tired.
Yeah. So a rested mind is a healed mind.
Let me tell you.
A healed mind gives you wings, right? It gives you, you're sharper, you're more creative, you
Tiffany.
You show up better. Just take a 15-minute nap. I'm a huge rest advocate. Huge. Huge. And we, you know, and when you talk about this sort of hustle culture, which is really what it is,
facts, love it. Yeah.
Back to historically, we just, as a people, we just have not had the privilege of rest, and it is not a privilege; it is our right. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of people pausing, closing your eyes, relaxing your body, taking a break, zoning out, and then coming back when your body says, yes, it's time.
There it is. There it is. Tiffany Gill, you're doing some fantastic work. You've been doing it for a while, and so we appreciate you so much. This is work that is so important, not just for the girls in the communities that you're working with and working in, but just for the culture. You know what I'm saying? To see a Black woman taking the reins, and I mean, y'all doing it so big, but trust and believe that you got support. You always got a platform with us here on the culture, here on the Black Star Network, to talk about upcoming events and everything that you're doing. But I truly appreciate you, sis, for doing this big work. It's not easy. It requires a lot from you as the founder, just as much as it requires from your participants. Yeah. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And so I know that it takes a lot from you. It forces you to kind of step up in a lot of ways, for you to confront your own self in a lot of ways. But it's important work. This is important work. Mental health and wellness, especially for our little girls and little boys, Black girls, Black boys. We need this.
Yes.
They need this.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. That gives me that's thank you.
No, because I get it. Sometimes we don't get our flowers. We don't get our flowers, right? You know what I'm saying? And I get it, sis. Look, this ain't easy.
Yeah. This
ain't easy. So, like I said, the platform is always open to you. But let's keep on doing the work. And I hope, this is with all due sincerity, Tiffany, I hope you get some rest. I hope you do whatever you need to do to find some peace of mind, because as much as we always applaud people who grind it out, keep doing it, and for the people and all that, man, please.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
I don't find too many Black people. I haven't found too many Black people that think about the movement, the revolution all day, all night. And if y'all out there talking about, this is all I do.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
that's the problem.
Yeah, you're gonna run in the ground, and you're talking about rest. I'm on the heels of a cold, and so rest is actually my agenda this weekend. But no, I honestly, it is hard. It is challenging. Yeah. There are some days when the answers don't come quickly, the funding doesn't come quickly, or at all. But it's necessary work. And there are so many brilliant examples that I have before me, that there's no excuse for me to not try.
There it is.
Yep.
There it is. Tiffany Gill, chief storyteller, visionary, founder of Black Girls Unscripted. Tiffany, what's the website, or how can people get more information about the great work you're doing?
Sure. So they can follow us on social media. We're at BG Unscripted, right? Black Girls Unscripted. So it's BG Unscripted. Or they can visit our website. We're at www.blackgirlsunscripted.org.
Boom, there it is. My team always on time. Look at that. Check that out. That's what it is right there, folks. Look at that. What happens when women and girls gather in the same space to share their stories? Greatness and magic, baby. I love it. Absolutely love it. Tiffany Gill, thank you so much for coming on the show. But more importantly, Tiffany, thank you for being so good for the culture.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talk to you soon, sis.
Take care.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank each and every one of you for being a part of the conversation. Welcome all of our new watchers on our online culture crew. Man, I see the numbers. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. We truly, truly appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed this number of conversations that we've had. We'll talk a little bit about this whole white privilege card later on. Get to that in the early part of next week. But there's so many more conversations that we want to have. But let me just tell you, I am truly, truly grateful for each and every one of you, whether you agree with me or disagree with the audience or with the guest or whatever the case may be. The fact is that you're here and there's a space for you as long as we have these balanced conversations, as long as we can be respectful. And look, you can have your opinion, but I hope your opinion is rooted in some truth, rooted in some facts. Because at the end of the day, folks, that's what we have to lean on. In a world full of lies, the culture has to be rooted in some truth. All right, there it is. All right, look, make sure y'all continue to support us here at Black Star Network. Check us out on our website at blackstarnetwork.com. We're doing big things. We bring in 24-hour streaming. We bring in new shows, all of that and a whole lot more. So we need your support. Financial support, share the content, keep people informed, let people know that Black Star Network is doing the great work of being a Black-owned media institution where they can find conversations, dialogues, and so much more that tells our story and pleads our case. So make sure y'all check us out at Black Star Network. Download the app for free and trust and believe you will not be disappointed. That's going to do it for me. Stay tuned. Up next at the 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is Brother Roland Martin with RMU. Make sure y'all check him out on Friday night. And as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk on Monday for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Look forward to talking to you soon. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you later. Peace.